The ticker tape flashes, a relentless stream of red and green. Each number, each flicker, is a heartbeat of the global economy, pulsing with anticipation and anxiety. The world's fortunes, hopes, and fears are encoded in these shifting digits, telling a story that never truly pauses. The ticker tape flashes, a relentless stream of red and green. It's more than just data. It's a living record of ambition, risk, and transformation. Every surge and dip reflects decisions made in distant boardrooms, on trading floors, and in the quiet moments before dawn. The ticker tape flashes, a relentless stream of red and green. It's the pulse of a world in flux, a visual symphony of change that echoes through every financial district, every investor's mind, and every nation's future. It's 2026. The headline blazes across screens worldwide. Beijing unveils quantum dawn supercomputer surpassing all rivals. This isn't just a technological leap. It's a declaration, a moment that signals a new era. The world watches as China claims the crown of computational supremacy, leaving competitors scrambling to catch up. In boardrooms from New York to London, coffee grows cold as executives stare at their monitors. The news is more than a headline, it's a wake-up call. Strategies are rewritten in real time as leaders grapple with the reality that the balance of power is shifting before their eyes. At the Pentagon, lights burn late into the night. Military analysts, intelligence officers, and strategists huddle over glowing screens, scrambling to understand the implications. What does this mean for national security, for alliances, for the future of global competition? This isn't just about technology. It's a symbol, a signal that the world's center of gravity has shifted. The axis of innovation, influence, and ambition is tilting, and the consequences will ripple across continents and generations. The story isn't just about a computer, it's about how we got here. It's a journey through decades of invention, competition, and collaboration. Each breakthrough, each setback, each leap forward has brought us to this pivotal moment. This moment is the result of decades of decisions, policies, and unforeseen consequences. Treaties signed in distant capitals, policies crafted in the halls of power, and choices made in the pursuit of progress, all have converged to shape today's reality. The United States, in its relentless quest for growth and efficiency, laid the tracks for China's rise. Factories once filled with the hum of American industry now stand silent, while across the ocean, Chinese ports teem with activity, exporting not just goods, but ambition and innovation. Each factory that closed in the Rust Belt, each container ship that docked in Shanghai, each technology-sharing agreement signed, they were all pieces of a much larger puzzle. These were not isolated events, but interconnected moves in a global game of strategy and survival. We saw them as smart business or diplomatic victories, not as a slow transfer of power. The celebrations on Wall Street, the handshakes in diplomatic halls, masked a deeper shift, one that would only become clear with time. It was a quiet revolution, conducted in boardrooms, on factory floors, and in the sterile glow of laboratories. The architects of this change were not always aware of the world they were building, but their actions set the stage for a new global order. Tonight, we'll connect those dots and see how America, often unwittingly, helped fuel the rise of its greatest competitor. We'll trace the hidden threads that link policy to progress, and progress to power. This isn't about blame, it's about understanding the pivotal choices that set us on this course. Only by examining the crossroads of history can we hope to navigate the future with clarity and purpose. The world didn't just change on its own. We helped change it. Every decision, every innovation, every risk taken or opportunity missed has shaped the landscape we see today. The ticker tape keeps flashing, and the story of transformation continues, written by all of us, one choice at a time. It began with a single symbolic act, a gesture that would echo through the corridors of history and alter the course of global politics. In February 1972, President Richard Nixon stepped off Air Force One onto the tarmac in Beijing, extending his hand to Premier Zhou Enlai. This was more than a simple greeting. It was a calculated risk, a moment that shattered decades of silence between two of the world's most powerful nations. For over 20 years, the United States and China had been locked in a cold, unyielding standoff. The two countries eyed each other warily across ideological and military divides, their relations frozen by suspicion and mutual distrust. Nixon's visit was a seismic event, a diplomatic earthquake that sent shockwaves through the world. It was a bold move to reshape the Cold War's balance of power, and it caught both allies and adversaries by surprise. The goal was clear: use China as a counterweight to the Soviet Union, shifting the global chessboard and gaining leverage in a tense, divided world. At the time, few in the West imagined that this isolated, impoverished nation could ever become an economic powerhouse. China was seen as a sleeping giant, cut off from the world, its cities and countryside marked by decades of hardship and revolution. Yet, with that historic handshake, a door was opened, one that could never be closed. The world watched as two former adversaries began to chart a new course together. The visit sparked a stream of cultural, political, and economic exchanges. Delegations crossed the Pacific, ideas flowed freely, and the first seeds of cooperation were planted in once hostile soil. For China, it was a golden opportunity to learn from the West, to absorb new technologies, and to begin the long process of modernization. Chinese officials toured Western factories, students studied abroad, and the nation's leaders took careful notes. America saw a pawn in its global strategy. China saw a pathway to national rejuvenation. Each side believed it could shape the future to its own advantage. Each new agreement was a crack in the dam, unleashing immense human potential and setting in motion changes that would transform both nations and the world. The architects of this new relationship believed they were guiding China toward a Western future. But in reality, they handed over the tools for China to build its own destiny, one that would surprise everyone, including themselves. The political opening of the 1970s gave way to a new era of possibility between East and West. As diplomatic barriers fell, the world watched with anticipation, sensing the winds of change blowing across China's vast landscape. What followed was nothing short of an economic gold rush. Cities, like Shanghai and Shenzhen, transformed almost overnight, their streets teeming with energy, ambition, and the promise of prosperity. The world's most populous nation was awakening to the possibilities of global commerce. For American corporations, China represented a market of over 1 billion people, an untapped frontier that could redefine their fortunes. The sheer scale was staggering, a consumer base larger than any other, hungry for new products, brands, and experiences. But entering this market wasn't simple. U.S. companies were required to form joint ventures with local firms, often sharing their most valuable technology and business secrets in exchange for a foothold. Beijing's leaders understood the immense value of what they offered: market access in return for knowledge and expertise. Every negotiation was carefully calculated, every contract a step toward national advancement. On factory floors and in design labs, Chinese engineers worked side by side with their American counterparts, absorbing decades of industrial know-how in just a few short years. The learning curve was steep, but the progress was astonishing. It became the largest, fastest transfer of practical knowledge in modern history, a transformation that would reshape global manufacturing and trade. When China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001, with strong support from the US, it was hailed as the final step in integrating China into the global economic order. Many believed this would usher in a new era of openness and cooperation. Instead, WTO membership supercharged China's export-driven economy, granting it unprecedented access to global markets while allowing it to protect and nurture its own industries at home. The prevailing belief was that WTO membership would compel China to play by international rules, leveling the playing field for all. But in reality, China used the system to its maximum advantage, leveraging global rules to fuel its own rise and reshape the balance of economic power. The hum of American factories faded as jobs moved east. In towns across the Midwest, factory gates closed. The reason? China's cheap labor. For companies, the logic was clear: lower costs, higher profits. This wasn't just outsourcing, it was a migration of America's industrial base. Factories, suppliers, and entire production ecosystems moved to China. The US outsourced its industrial commons, skills and knowledge built over a century. China became not just the world's workshop, but its leading expert in manufacturing. Container ships full of goods sailed from China to American ports, cementing a new reality. America became a nation of consumers, China a nation of producers. This created a deep trade imbalance financed by borrowing, much of it from China itself. The American appetite for cheap goods directly funded China's rise. A strange, codependent relationship was born. In sleek boardrooms, American tech companies struck deals in China. The price of entry: share your technology. Sometimes it was explicit: blueprints, source code, manufacturing secrets. Other times, Chinese engineers learned on the job, then left to start their own firms. This forced technology transfer became a systematic engine for China's advancement. High-speed rail is a prime example. Foreign firms provided their best tech, China absorbed and improved it, then competed globally. This pattern repeated across sectors: telecom, energy, aviation, biotech. Western firms, driven by short-term profits, rationalized the trade-off. What they underestimated was China's long-term vision. The blueprints and bargains of today laid the foundation for tomorrow's tech giants. China wasn't just collecting technologies, it was building independent capability. The cost of doing business was far higher than anyone realized. Made in China once meant cheap, low-quality goods, but profits from manufacturing were reinvested in education, R&D, and infrastructure. The Made in China 2025 plan aimed to shift the country from low-end manufacturing to high-tech leadership. Cities like Shenzhen transformed from fishing villages to innovation hubs. Tech giants like Huawei and Tencent emerged, powered by a new generation of skilled scientists and entrepreneurs. Millions studied abroad, returning with cutting-edge knowledge. China was no longer content to make things for others. It was creating its own brands and standards. The West's dominance was no longer guaranteed. As China's economic power grew, so did its ambitions. The Belt and Road Initiative, a multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure project, was unveiled. Roads, ports, and railways were built across Asia, Africa, and Europe, financed by Chinese loans. For many nations, these offers were irresistible. But the BRI was more than economics. It was a tool of geopolitics and soft power. Countries indebted to China found it hard to oppose Beijing. Ports and railways had potential military uses, creating strategic footholds. China was building a parallel, China-centric system of trade and finance. The New Silk Road was paving a path for Chinese influence worldwide. It's 2026. The unipolar moment is over. We now live in a world where China stands as a peer competitor to the US. The global chessboard has been rearranged. The rivalry spans technology, diplomacy, and military power. Every summit, trade deal, and breakthrough is seen through the lens of great power competition. Nations must now balance between the American eagle and the Chinese dragon. Alliances are more fluid. The old rules no longer apply. American power was built on democracy and alliances. China offers state-driven capitalism and economic leverage. This ideological competition is defining the 21st century. The contest to shape the future is fully underway. China's rise is a story of interdependence and unintended consequences. The US didn't set out to create a rival, it sought to win the Cold War and open new markets. The assumption economic integration would lead to political liberalization. That proved wrong. China used Western engagement to serve its own interests, embracing capitalism on its own terms. The result: two superpowers with different values and visions. The era of cooperation has become an era of competition. The risk of conflict, trade war, tech war, or military miscalculation is real. Yet the two nations remain deeply intertwined. Decoupling would be catastrophic. Navigating this dynamic requires wisdom and statecraft. The rise of China is a lesson in humility and unintended consequences. The next chapter is up to us.